Welcome to the Football Debates Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Debates. In this episode, we're going to look at college football realignment, NFL style. We're going to reorganize college football, get rid of the college football playoff committee, set up a logical playoff system, break down the teams into conferences and divisions, and even look at a little bit of promotion and relegation possibilities similar to English soccer. To begin with, we need to accept two things about college football right now. First of all, college football is the NFL minor leagues. Players are paid to play through the NIL system, and college football players actually can make more money staying in college as opposed to being a late round draft pick in the NFL. So let's get college football reorganized the way the NFL does, set up their playoff system similar to what the NFL is, and get it more organized. I'm not suggesting changing any rules for college football. I still like how college has the wider hash marks, how some of the college football rules are different than the NFL rules, and I think we should keep those. We're just going to reorganize the conferences that college football has into divisions like the NFL and reorganize the playoffs. And the reason we're doing that is the second point. College football is really ridiculous right now. For example, the Big Ten has 18 teams. The Big 12 has 14 teams. California and Stanford are in the Atlantic Coast Conference, and Washington, Oregon, USC, and UCLA are in the same conference as Rutgers and Maryland. So these teams are flying across the country for conference games. Let's get things reorganized, make it more regional the way the NFL is. Now, to do this, all of these ideas are things that I came up with. So let's get this reorganized the way that I think it should be. I'm not saying I'm right, but let's just get things organized. College football is a much different type of game than what it was in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. But the organization that they had back then was more logical, was more regional, similar to the way the NFL is. So let's redo college football that way. We're going to start by starting with two conferences. The NFL right now has an American Conference and a National Conference, and those winners play each other in the Super Bowl. We're going to do the same thing with college football. For simplicity's sake, we're going to call one the University Conference and the College Conference. Two separate conferences. Each one will have 4 divisions, an East, a North, a South, and a West. Each division will have 9 teams. For the upper level of college football, I went with the major colleges, the SEC, the ACC, the Big 12, and the Big 10 provided the majority of those teams. I had to move some teams around to get a little bit more of a logical balance. The lower level of college football, we're going to have the same conferences, the same divisions, but there's only going to be 8 teams in each division. As far as relegation and promotion go, if you're in the University Conference and you finish last in your division, and in the lower level you have the University Conference team that wins their division, those two teams will trade spots. For example, a couple of years ago, Purdue went 0-11. They didn't win a single game. So under this model, Purdue would move down, and for argument's sake, let's say Ball State won their division. Ball State would move up. They would trade spots, and the schedules would correspond that way. Going with the schedules now. Each division has 9 teams. So you're going to play the 8 teams in your division. 4 games at home, 4 games on the road. Each team will then have a schedule similar to the NFL schedule where you play the corresponding team. So for example, this past season, Kansas City Chiefs finished 3rd in their division. They're going to play the number 3 team in the AFC North, the AFC East, and the AFC South. Similarly, the New England Patriots won their division. They're going to play the number 1 team in the AFC West, the AFC East, the AFC North and the AFC South. So we're going to do that with these same teams. So for example, let's say Florida finished 3rd in their division. They're going to play the number 3 team in each of the other divisions. So they're going to play the 8 teams in their division, and then the other 7 teams that finish 3rd in all the other divisions. That'll give them 15 games. So all the college football teams at the upper division, at the upper level, will play 15 games. Because we have fewer teams at the lower level, they'll play 14 games. Getting into the playoffs. Each division winner makes the playoffs similar to the NFL. we're going to have wild card teams. A maximum of 4 teams from any one division can make it. So that way, if you have one conference that's very good, like the Big Ten and the SEC have been for the last 10 to 15 years, you can have multiple teams make the playoffs. But each team still gets their division winner. However, you can have no more than 4 teams from any one division get in. Now, how do we determine these teams? Well, we're getting rid of the College Football Playoff Committee. We're not going to have people that decide, well, this team went undefeated, but they had their best player get hurt, or their schedule wasn't as difficult as the team that went 9-3. We're going to get rid of that. We're going to use the same metrics that the NFL does. You win your division, you're in. Then we're going to look at the wild card teams. We're going to use the same metrics that the NFL has. Wins within your division, wins within your conference versus common opponents. I think the NFL has 8, 10, or 12 different tiebreaker scenarios that determines who wins the division and who makes the playoffs. We're going to do the same thing in college football. It's an objective metric as opposed to a subjective one. And if teams have a complaint, well, here's my argument to them. Win your games. Win your division. Do better than the number 3 team in another division. Win your games. Don't leave chance. Even though the NFL team does have, or the NFL game does have teams that at the end of the season, they're relying on other teams to win or lose. They put themselves into that spot by not winning and losing their games. So let's treat college football like the NFL and set up the playoffs that way. Now, the next question people will have will be, well, what about the bowl games? In this scenario, we're going to get rid of the bowl games. Yes, that's not going to be a popular idea. Yes, the bowl games are a boon for those communities and they bring in lots of money. But the bowl games have become ridiculous, just like the rest of college football. With the transfer portals and players transferring after the season before their bowl games, players sitting out so they're not injured before the NFL draft, coaches leaving their teams before their bowl games, you're getting a team that goes 10-2 during the course of the year. But when they get to the bowl game, it's not the same 10-2 team. They might have a different head coach. The quarterback might not be playing. The top wide receiver might be going to a different college. The top running back is sitting out because he's getting ready for the NFL draft. The top defensive backs aren't playing because they're also transferring or sitting for the NFL draft. So the teams that play in the bowl game aren't the teams that played during the season. So you're getting the third string quarterback passing to the wide receiver that was number 4 on the depth chart being tackled by the corner that is only playing because the top 4 guys aren't playing either. So you're not getting good quality bowl games. So let's get rid of the bowl game system. So when we get to these divisions of teams, we're also getting rid of the independent teams. Right now in Major College Football, there's 3 big independent teams. UConn, UMass, and Notre Dame. This is not going to be a popular idea, but we're not going to award teams for just being off by themselves. If you want to play in the national championship, you're going to get into one of these divisions. You're going to get into one of these conferences. If you want to stay independent, then you need to move down to the FCS or move down to Division II. It's not going to be a popular idea, especially with Notre Dame fans. I understand that and I get that. But there are no independent teams in the NFL. So we're realigning college football similar to the NFL. Now let's look at all of these divisions. First one we're looking at is what I have as a Power 4 conference, East 1. Just for simplicity's sake. I didn't name all the conferences or all the divisions or anything like that. This one has Central Florida, Duke, Florida, Florida State, Georgia Tech, Miami, North Carolina State, and Wake Forest. This is a more regional area. Yes, Florida was traditionally in the SEC and doesn't fit in with the rest of these teams. Most of them were ACC teams. Central Florida, I believe, is in the Big 12 right now. But again, we're realigning things to be more regional. Remember, at one point in the NFL, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were in the NFC North with the Packers, the Vikings, the Bears, and the Lions. We're going to get that reorganized. The next division you're looking at is the other Eastern Division: Boston College, Clemson, Maryland, Rutgers, South Carolina, Syracuse, Virginia, West Virginia, Virginia Tech and West Virginia. Again, mostly ACC teams, or some of these teams are even Big East for like basketball conferences. We're making them more regional, but trying to keep teams within the same conference as we went. First North Division: Arkansas, Illinois, Iowa, Iowa State, Louisville, Minnesota, Missouri, Northwestern, Wisconsin. Yes, Arkansas, again, is in the SEC, so is Missouri, but Missouri was at one time in the Big 8 or the Big 12 when Iowa State was also in that. We're getting this, again, more regional and trying to keep some rivalries. In the other North Division: Cincinnati, Indiana, Michigan, Michigan State, Notre Dame, Ohio State, Penn State, Pittsburgh, and Purdue. While this does have some of the big powers right now, having Penn State, Ohio State, Notre Dame, and Michigan all in one division, yes, this makes it a very strong, very powerful division. But this is also the reason for one division winner and potentially 3 wildcard teams from that same division. In the South, we have Baylor, Houston, Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, SMU, TCU, Texas, Texas A&M, and Texas Tech. Basically, the Texas and Oklahoma Conference, if you even want to call it that, but this is one of the South ones. The other South Conference is definitely much more SEC: Alabama, Auburn, Georgia, Kentucky, LSU, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, Tennessee, and Vanderbilt. In the West, the first West Division is a little bit more coastal: Boise State, Cal, Oregon, Oregon State, Stanford, UCLA, USC, Washington, Washington State. Put Boise State in this one, even though they have been in the Mountain West Conference. They're traditionally been a very strong team and a very good team, not just beating some of the other bigger FBS schools, but also putting a lot of players into the NFL. So they get the benefit of the doubt. They're moving up. And then the last upper division West group: it's Arizona, Arizona State, BYU, Colorado, Colorado State, Kansas, Kansas State, Nebraska, and Utah. Yes, this is West and it has Kansas, Kansas State, and Nebraska. But like the NFL, we had to make some adjustments. Remember, Kansas City is also in the AFC West with Denver, Las Vegas, and the Chargers. And the NFC West is all along the coast: Seattle, San Francisco, Los Angeles Rams, and the Arizona Cardinals. So now as we move on to the smaller schools, as they were at the end of the 2025-26 season, I did not include North Dakota State in this, even though they're about to move up to the Mountain West Conference, and we'll talk about that in another episode. But we are going to get these teams in a similar breakdown. Now they will play 7 games in their division because there's only 8 teams in the division. And they'll play the other 7 teams at the same level, finishing in the same spot that they did, just like the NFL team does, like the other division did. Now, the reason I didn't move up any of the FCS teams was I'm just trying to keep this one kind of simple, just taking the teams that were currently in these conferences. We're not looking at anybody moving up. So this first division is going to be Appalachian State, Charlotte, Coastal Carolina, East Carolina, Georgia Southern, Georgia State, Marshall, and Old Dominion. And this is the East Division of the lower level schools. Next bracket is Army, Delaware, James Madison, Liberty, Navy, Temple, UMass, and UConn. And I definitely wanted to keep Army and Navy together for their traditional game in December. That is one of the few college football traditions, or one of the many college football traditions that we need to keep, or at least try to keep as best as we can. The North Division: Arkansas State, Central, Eastern, and Western Michigan, Middle Tennessee, Missouri State, Northern Illinois, and Western Kentucky. While this does move a little bit south, like the one North Division did, we're trying to keep it organized in this way. Now, one difference you might notice is that in this bracket you have Eastern, Central, and Western Michigan, where Michigan, Michigan State were in the other division. There were just so many teams in this part of the country between Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Indiana, that was difficult to keep everybody organized. So in the other North bracket, it was Akron, Ball State, Bowling Green, Buffalo, Kent State, Miami of Ohio, University of Ohio, and Toledo. In the South, Memphis, Rice, Southern Mississippi, Tulane, Tulsa, University of Louisiana, Lafayette, Monroe, and Louisiana Tech. The other South bracket: Florida Atlantic, Florida International, Jacksonville State, Kennesaw State, South Alabama, Troy, University of Alabama, Birmingham, and the University of South Florida. Finally, the West Division, Fresno State, Hawaii, Nevada, New Mexico State, San Diego State, San Jose State, and UNLV. And Air Force, North Texas, Sam Houston, Texas State, Utah State, UTEP, UTSA, and Wyoming. One thing that I did for this program is I have the 3 service academies at the lower levels. Because technically right now, if Army, Navy, or Air Force want to win a national championship, they would have to go through and defeat Michigan, Michigan State, Ohio State, Oregon, Texas, Georgia, all those schools. Service academy players, they can't get NIL money. And those players, they're good college players. Several of them have gone on to play in the NFL. There are a few playing in the NFL right now. And they are getting drafted in the NFL. But talent-wise, they just don't have the ability to play for a national championship like those other teams. Under this system, the lower tier teams, the ones that we just covered, the traditional group of 5 teams, they'll have their own national championship. And this gives the players at Army and Navy and Air Force a chance to play for national championship, be national champions, which I think is the least that we can do for these service academies, since these players that go to these academies, they're serving a higher purpose, they're serving a higher calling. They're risking their lives going to the military to defend us and give us the freedoms like enjoying college football on a Saturday. So I think it's only fair that we give them the ability to play for a national championship on a fair, even playing field. Because I do think that Army, Navy, and Air Force can field players that are good enough to play for a national championship at that mid-major level or at that lower tier level. They don't get the athletes year in and year out and have an athlete or have a roster loaded with great athletes like Ohio State and Georgia and Texas. But their athletes are good enough at just a little bit lower level to play for a national championship. So these are some of the ideas that I have as far as reorganizing college football, getting rid of the College Football Playoff Committee, having an organized national championship, so that way there's no dispute about who's in, who's out, who should have been in, why some teams got in and others didn't. This way it's an objective system. You either win your division and get the wild card tiebreakers, or you're done. Thanks for watching the Football Debates podcast. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, and we'll see you on our next episode.